Well, welcome Catalina Foothills Patriots. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for supporting our school district, our school board candidates, and our community and our kids, most importantly. So I am here to introduce the moderators, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what happened to bring about this forum. This is an entirely candidate-driven forum where one of the candidates, Mr. Pemberton, mentioned that at the time there was no forum that was planned. There was no scheduled way for the public to be able to see the different candidates, and so it seemed natural to get that initiated. So we then reached out to all of the candidates and asked what kind of forum, we proposed this structure, what you're going to see here today, and then asked if there was any feedback, and then by September 1st we solidified that. There was a little bit of back and forth from a couple candidates, but this is what you're going to see is the result of that candidate-led effort. You'll notice on the panel here, not all of the candidates are here, and so Brooke Arispe had reached out saying that she's not able to attend for health-related reasons. The other three candidates, Logue, Diwali, and Jackson, had said that they just did not want to attend. So that leaves us with these two candidates here. And as you've already seen, hopefully, the question cards, this is going to be an audience-driven forum, so we're going to have it based on topics that you care about. Many of you have already submitted questions. I don't know if we have capacity for more, but if you are so interested and haven't gotten to that yet, there are cards in the back table so you can fill out your question. We'll try to keep outbursts and applause to a minimum. I'm going to defer to our moderators to be the bad guys if anybody gets out of control. I'm sorry? Okay, good. So if you have cards and you fill out your question, Vicki is the one to hand your cards to, and she has more there as well. We're probably going to end before 4. It was originally up to 4, but that's with a full panel. We'll probably end before that. Recording is okay. We're recording this, but it's not being live streamed. The last time the candidates came together, when we planned this, there wasn't any other forum, but there's been 2 other ones. There was one out of Phoenix that was live streamed. This is intended to be a real local event. We're not live streaming, it's just all right here, although it will be recorded. Bathrooms are out and to the left. Also a water fountain out there if you need to use it. The last thing I'd want to mention is if you haven't registered to vote, Monday I believe is the deadline for that, and so we have a QR code on Kelly, can you hold up that little card there? There's these cards up at the table where those index cards were. There's a QR code. It takes you to a government website for the state of Arizona to be able to register, track your ballot, and that kind of thing. All right. So, introducing the moderators who we are so fortunate to have. Before I do, thank you, Catalina Foothills Church, Ray, and Steve. Thank you guys for coming out and making this run smoothly. Christy Simone, to my left, is a radio show host, friend of small business, the working poor, the taxpayer, and good food. Chris hosts the Wake Up Tucson morning show on KVOI Radio, 10:30 a.m., where he questions local leaders and exposes backroom deals and crony relationships that are harmful to the region, including local school administrators. Dan Shearer is editor of the Green Valley News and Sarita Sun. He and his wife Carol have 3 children, including a daughter who taught 10 years in public schools, and a son who teaches at a public high school in Washington State. Dan has taught on the college level and enjoys talking about local journalism and its role in helping build strong communities. So with that, let us begin.
Yeah. Let's start off with, the candidates start with Jennifer and we'll go with Bart. Give us a basic introduction and again, why are you running for a school board in Catalina Foothills?
Great, thank you. My name is Jennifer Repsher. I'm excited to be running for Catalina Foothills School Governing Board. A little bit about myself. I'm a born and raised Tucsonan. I've lived most of my life in the Foothills community.
You guys hear her? I just want to make sure she's good. I don't want her to break her back. Hold on. Just get that fist away.
Right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, feel free to adjust your mic stands.
Let's see here. I did attend K through 12 in District 16. I attended Sunrise Drive Elementary, Esperero Canyon Middle School, and I graduated from Catalina Foothills high school. I was lucky enough to marry my high school sweetheart, and once we started our family, we knew that the Foothills was where we were going to raise our kids. Our oldest daughter also attended K through 12 in District 16, where in fact she came across some of the same teachers I had in school. She graduated with honors from Catalina Foothills High School in 2023, and she is now in her second year of college. We're so proud of her accomplishments. I am a small business owner, formerly an owner-operator of a medical spa that I opened in my early 20s, and now a local realtor for over 9 years. I'm invested in this community, and with 2 generations having attended our public schools, I'm committed to the further improvement of our district. I decided to run for school board when I realized that concerns involving district policies, expectations of high academic achievement, safety and security, and the need for more teacher support was not met with high enough priority. The status quo just doesn't seem to be cutting it anymore. New energy, new ideas, and different perspectives can really engage our governing board to problem solve together. We do have an amazing school district with so many engaged parents, students, and teachers. We just need to work together to provide an outstanding education that relies on the input from district residents and open-enrolled families. I know we can work together to address a few shortcomings to strengthen school safety, engage with parents, and focus on student achievement in academics. I hope to bring respectfulness and collaboration to our district's governing board. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Bart?
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Bart Pemberton. I'm running for school board in CFSD, and I'll tell you why. CFSD is a great school district, and I want to keep it that way. I'm a third-generation Arizonan, and the Catalina Foothills has been my home for almost 30 years. My wife and I met here, we raised our children here, and I'm an owner of a small business here. I'm an eye doctor, an optometrist. All our children attended CFSD schools. Our eldest had a great K through 12 experience. She started at Manzanita, proceeded through Orange Grove, and then finally graduated from the high school in 2023. In addition to the academic program, she loved the music program. The band and music programs in this district are second to none. However, what motivated me to run for school board is that I realized CFSD is a great school district at risk in decline because the current board has yet to give a fair hearing to and have a conversation with concerned parents and guardians. Instead of a laser-like focus on excellence in academics, athletics, and the arts, it's instead focused on areas best left to the parents, thereby giving the impression that they know better than the parents what's best for their children. Nothing good can come from such a mindset. It can only lead to declining academic performance and social discord. To reverse this trend and improve learning for all the children, I want to be elected and have the board honestly and effectively partner with parents, improves school safety for all students, faculty, and staff, and make CFSD teachers the highest paid in the state. If you want a board member who will listen to the concerns of parents and guardians and will not attempt to supplant their vital role in the raising of their children, and who will do what he or she can to ensure that the schools remain places that focus on excellence in academics, athletics, and the arts, then you should vote for Jennifer Repsher and for me. Thank you.
So I had a quick follow-up. So for each of you, we'll start with Bart, then we'll go to Jennifer. What was the, I call it the straw that broke the camel's back, that you said, I want to run for this, put my life on hold a little bit, and run for Catalina Foothills School District? Bart, what was the moment for you?
It was actually a couple of moments, I would say, but
It happens.
the beginning of it was the pandemic, because I realized how much power the board had, and I also realized how terribly unresponsive they were to the concerns of parents. Everything we would hear was, well, we got to defer to the experts. I'm like, well, but you're the ones who make the decisions. Like, the buck stops with you. Well, yeah, so anyway, that was troubling. And
There was a second straw?
Yes, that was when we wanted to have certain topics on the agenda for an upcoming agenda, and they just refused. and they just said, no, we're not going to do it. We had like 200 parents sign a petition saying, we want a particular topic on the agenda so that we could discuss it. And they just flat out refused. And I thought, well, that, you know, reasonable people can disagree, but part of the job of a school board is to listen to to your constituents, listen to the members of the community. How can you know what the community's thinking if you don't have a conversation with them? And so they, you know, again, reasonable people can disagree, but the best way to handle that is you have an orderly meeting where you allow people to speak, ask questions, and then the board answers. Because, you know, pardon me for those who already know this, but for those of you that don't, in order to the board to comment on anything or to speak, that item of concern has to be on the agenda. So if it's not on the agenda, there's a thing called open meeting law, and it prevents, they're not allowed to speak on things that haven't been announced beforehand. So we said, fine, put it on agenda for an upcoming meeting. No, we're not going to do it. Well, I mean, part of your job is to potentially listen to people that don't agree with you. Or maybe you even think they're a little crazy, but you still have to listen to them. That's what you sign up for when you become a board member.
What was your agenda item you wanted?
This particular one was concern over their so-called shared facilities policy. So they have an unwritten policy and practice that basically, in my opinion, can compromise the safety of girls. And they have the policy is to allow 18-year-old men to share the same bathrooms, locker rooms, and showers as 14-year-old girls. And so out of safety concerns, we're like, well, look, could we talk about this, okay? Because we know it's a complicated issue. We know that there's high passions on all sides, and everybody loves their children, right? But not everybody always agrees on what's the best solution facing their children. So how do you resolve that? Well, I think a way is to have constructive conversations about it, to be as compassionate as possible. But if you won't discuss it at all, and you don't announce it, like this is not, they don't have this as a black and white policy that they tell everybody beforehand when they're signing their kids up. So maybe you don't have to change the practice, just tell everybody that that's what's happening when they enroll their children. But they won't do it, they won't talk about it. So.
Jennifer, what was your breaking point? Sorry, that you said, I'm going to run for office.
Well, I would agree
or
with...
your moment of inspiration, let me say that better.
I would agree with Bart. It really all comes down to parental involvement. So as I've spoken with parents who currently have children in district, parents who have pulled their kids out of district, and parents whose children have already graduated, the common topic of concern is the lack of involvement from parents who have complaints or issues. So of course, families who only have positive experiences are understandably great cheerleaders for CFSD, and that's heartwarming to hear. The impact that our teachers and programs have on our students, and myself and oldest daughter included. But we can't forget about the families with grievances, and that's really where it came down to, not being heard as a parent when you have an issue. So no matter the topic, many parents have felt left out of the decision-making process. So unfortunately, some teachers and staff have experienced the same lack of communication when addressing the need for support and the need for action within their particular school. Our district seems to be experiencing an erosion of true inclusivity. Parents are made to feel that if you don't like it here, you're free to send your kids elsewhere, which is a choice many parents faced with this scenario have done. So rather than addressing the concern head on, our current board has a pattern of disengaging and moving on to their next planned order of business. As a small community, our board, our superintendent, our principals, our administrators should really set the example of what true communication looks like, which means promoting all the great our district has to offer and addressing the issues that affect our families. We have some brave and engaged parents, and we're losing them to this lack of parental involvement.
Thank you. Dan.
Okay. Thank you again for being here. We appreciate it, and I'm sorry the others did not join us. Bart, we're going to start with you. Governor Hobbs vetoed a bill earlier this year that would have banned cell phones in schools during the school day. Do you support that veto, or do you think something beyond the district's current policy is necessary?
Yeah, I definitely, I think phones should not be, they should have a policy of, you can keep your phone, but if we see you using it during class time, you're going to lose it till the end of the class. That just ought to be a general policy like that. Just
Okay.
'cause
The current policy basically says students should not bring items to school that are going to interfere or disrupt with learning, but it doesn't ban them. So you're saying if they keep them in the backpack, we're good?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because it's a tool, right? So as long as they don't misuse the tool,
Right.
they can keep the tool.
Okay, Jennifer?
Yeah, so I have definitely heard of districts addressing this situation a little bit differently. I don't know if anyone has been to a concert or a comedy show where they make you put your phone in a little bag, clip it, you're not allowed to use it till you've completed the show. I know schools are starting to use that sort of process so that they can ensure that students aren't utilizing their phone during class time. That could certainly be an option within our school system. Kids still get to have their phone, they still get to use it in between breaks, but it is ensured that you don't use it and have no access to it during school time, during class time.
Some people like that idea, except are you willing as a district to fund those little bags?
That's a great question, and maybe an override would be necessary for something to increase funding for a project like that. Or once we get in and start to learn about the budget and find ways to adjust where money is being spent, maybe that's an easy program to add within our school.
So if you listen to the show, I am always focusing on literacy rates and reading at level at 3rd grade and beyond. And of course, Cat Foothills has been better than the average bear out there, but the average bear in Tucson, the bar is really, really low. So the question I have for you guys is, at the reading levels that we see, the math levels that we see in Catalina Foothill, do you feel like, because again, compared to some of the other ones that are in total emergency mode, it doesn't seem that bad here. What's your perception of how are we in the world of achievement in Cat Foothills School District, and how could things get better if you two get on the school board? So we'll start with Jennifer and go to Bart.
Sure. I have a little bit of a unique perspective. Not only have I gone through Catalina Foothills School District, but I had the pleasure of watching our oldest daughter go through district. And I have the ability to compare my educational experience with hers. And yes, you're right. We have great test scores. We have great achievement level compared to other school districts in Arizona. But the point is, we should be judging ourselves based on the achievements that we have already made. And if we take a look at our scores, if we take a look even as far back as when I was going to school in district, we were in the 80s, 90s for proficiency numbers, and we were pretty steady within those numbers until we were reaching about the 2014, 2015 timeframe. I understand tests have changed and adjusted, but a pretty dramatic drop from that time frame, approximately 20 proficiency points on average in both math and English language arts. That is something that should have been shocking and something that we should have really been addressing at that time and continuing to work on getting proficiency numbers back up. So the attention seems to have really shifted away from the educational experience and maybe starting to move into the idea of the whole child type of education. And maybe we really need to take a look at how that's affecting our children's test scores and their academic excellence. So, thank you.
Bart?
Yes, I would just echo what Jennifer said. If you go, even though I know that the tests have changed, so they're not identical, which is unfortunate because then it kind of messes up it hurts their comparison. But I think unless they completely made the test twice as hard, there's been a clear. You go back 10 years ago, up until about 10 years ago, they had math proficiency across the board of the mid-80s, and they had English language arts proficiency almost mid-90s.
So, and now they're basically the math proficiencies are around 58% this past year, and English language arts about 70%. So they're still very good compared to a lot of the surrounding districts, and they still have a lot of excellent AP honors. So there's still so much good, but that's definitely a negative trend that we would like to see reversed if possible, because if that keeps going, that's going to be a problem. So we would love to see that halted.
Okay, thank you. Bart, we'll throw this one to you. Is it ever appropriate to not share with parents something going on with their children on campus?
No.
Jennifer?
I would agree that no. That's not the place of the school to make the decision whether or not a parent should know any details about their children. And maybe a good way for our school to really show transparency is to add an additional parental notification policy. There are other schools that have implemented a policy like this. Temecula Valley Unified School District in California did just this because parents were leaving. They were feeling not informed about their children's needs, changes within the school district. So this particular policy would seek to quickly inform parents or guardians of any changes their student would like to make that differs from their official or unofficial records. So it would inform parents of any physical harm or bullying their child may have witnessed or been involved in. So these are just a few examples of what parents would like notifications on, and bringing it to their attention quickly could really help restore trust within our district between the schools and the parents.
I'm going to follow up with, we'll start with you, Bart. This kind of the same question asked in a different way. This is from the audience. When a student asks a teacher to use different pronouns and asks not to share it with abusive parents, what should school policy be?
Well, if they have a concern, if they have a legitimate concern of abusive parents, then they need to go to the police. I think they're obligated by law to report that. So they're not mutually exclusive. They could notify the police of what's going on, and then the police, of course, will notify the parents because they'll say, why? But so in the end, the parents have to be notified, and if they're criminals, then they need to be dealt with. But yeah, in the end, no matter what, the parents have to be notified.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I would agree with Bart, and I think that just kind of follows up the idea of a parental notification policy would really address that pretty quickly.
All right, next one. This is from the audience. What policies should be in place for transgender students when it comes to A, bathroom use, B, sports teams? We'll start with Jen, and then we'll go to Bart.
So Title IX at the moment is still being reviewed, so we will need to wait until that is finalized to really make a solid policy on that. But it really comes down to safety, and safety for our girls. Our schools still have the ability, it is not illegal for our schools to separate facilities and bathrooms and athletics by sex. So if we continue down that path, I think we can ensure safety for our girls in bathrooms, in locker rooms, and in athletics.
I would echo everything that she said. Yeah, I mean, the basic policy, safety should come first, and then if there's a way to address those, then, this is where communication with the district is very important. Meeting with parents, concerned parents, because if we just pretend or assume, well, I know everything, I have all the answers. Well, maybe the district wants everything to be co-ed. I mean, I don't think so, but I mean, how do you know unless you talk with the district? How do you, I mean, if there's no communication, if you just don't talk about it, well, we've decided it falls under our non-discrimination policy, which is so broad, it's a little bit jaw-dropping. So I think this is where parental involvement really comes in, because I think the CFSD is a great community. We could come up with a policy, I think, that would address the concerns of the majority of people and address safety concerns, address self-esteem concerns. I mean, but if we don't talk about it, if it's just like, well, you don't agree with us, therefore, you know, you're hateful or you're evil, well, that doesn't get us anywhere. So we need to have conversations.
Okay, Bart, we'll throw this one to you. Are you satisfied with how the district is preparing for students post-graduation, and what specifically do you like or what more needs to be done along those lines?
Well, from my eldest's experience, I mean, I think they did a great job. I mean, she had her pick of AP classes and honors classes, and she did very well. So I think in terms of college prep, as long as you're of that mindset and you're a child that's what I want to do, I think it's a great thing. I think there's been slowly, and I'd like to see more of it, more options for, and they are growing, but for like JTED or things that to channel kids to various trades and skilled trades, because those are tremendously rewarding and for the right people. Just like, so I'd like to see those grow. I think that they already have a pretty good one, but I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more of those.
Yeah, I would echo what Bart said. There's definitely a difference from when I graduated to when our oldest graduated, and the focus was really around college prep when I was in school. So the path, the way counselors helped guide you into college and applications really has changed a little bit since then, and I'm happy to see that. They're bringing in more options, just like Bart said, with JTED, and talking about trade schools, Pima Community College. They're bringing in military options. So not everything is guiding kids straight to college, but those that want to, they really have a nice path to get from high school to college. But I'm pretty happy with the broad options that our students now have versus maybe when I went to school. It was a little more focused just on college. So I'm happy to see that. And I agree. I think it should grow.
This is an audience card. As a member of the school board, how will you interact with teachers and hear about their concerns other than just by district-generated surveys?
Well, I'd want to talk with them. I mean, I'd want to.
Do we over-survey in Catalina Foothills District?
Well, my impression is that they survey the kids more than they survey the parents. That's part of the problem. So, and they survey the kids, and they'll say it's not a survey when it is, and they'll do it without the parents' knowledge and consent. So, sorry, I know that's not what you're asking, but it's definitely, that's something that needs to stop. But they need, there's a way, like Marana often has town hall type meetings, and those are ones that, so I would like to see something like that implemented in Catalina, and those would be opportunities for the teachers as well to come and to talk, meet school board members, ask them questions, express concerns, and do it without fearing retaliation. Because some of the teachers we've met, if they've voiced concerns, they've been retaliated against. Some of them have lost their jobs. So, at least from what we've been told. So,
Jennifer?
Yes, I don't think I can add a whole lot to what Bart said. I think he pretty much nailed it. So.
I'll have a follow-up on that. You said, Bart, that the kids were being surveyed without the parents' knowledge. Were they being surveyed on inappropriate topics, or why would you need to be told about that?
Well, there's been a couple. There was one a year ago. They were asking about what pronouns do you want to use, and was there, I don't have the exact wording, but also it was, is there anything you'd like to tell me that you don't want anybody else to know about, something along like, is there something you want to tell me that you won't tell anybody else? And it was, I just thought it was just a violation of privacy. I mean, they're basically asking children deeply personal questions that are really none of the school's business. And so if they're going to ask anybody, they should ask mom and dad or the guardians about that. So and that's when they said, oh, well, we don't think it's a survey, and no, we don't think we have to have parental permission. I've got an email from them saying that.
Okay. I don't typically ask questions I don't understand, but this is from the audience, so I'm going to ask you to define it. Do you think SEL is beneficial? That is social emotional learning. What is it? Bart,
Oh.
Bart, go ahead. We'll start with you. Sorry about that.
I've got a whole, so that's a great question. So what I would say is, the most critical SEL comes from the parents, and that stands for social emotional learning. So in the end, the details are what matters. So this is something that's been woven into the curriculum at every level, starting about 10 years ago. And so again, the details matter, and any implementation of this that excludes or keeps parents in the dark will cause more problems than it solves. And we have to ask ourselves a very important question. Are schools for learning, or are they for therapy? Any time taken away from classroom learning can harm ultimate excellence in academic athletics and the arts. And another interesting thing, in the 2013-2014 academic year, again, we talked about those proficiencies. They were very high, mid-80s, mid-90s. And then it's coincidentally around that time, SEL began to be implemented. Now, could this have something to do with the decline? I don't know, but I think it bears some investigating.
So I'm still trying to wrap my head around this SEL, social emotional learning. So it would be like, don't worry about solving the math problem, just tell us how you feel about it.
Yes, though the advocates would say, well, no, these are children that are suffering tremendous emotional angst and other problems, and if we don't address those, they can't learn. And that's true as far as it goes. But again, you get a blurring of the lines, because are schools health clinics, or are they places of learning? And I don't think you can do both. There are plenty of health and mental counseling services and offices and practices available in the community. You have the schools start doing it. Maybe there's a place for that, but again, mom and dad have to be included. Any of these things that are done without the parents' knowledge and consent are dangerous, if it's potentially very dangerous.
So in its purest form, SEL is not beneficial. That's what you would say.
I would say the way it's currently been implemented.
Okay. Very good. Jennifer?
Yes, Bart brought up a lot of good points. It is definitely something we need to take a look at. Just as he said, right around the time this was implemented, we see a decline in proficiency numbers. And this isn't just within Catalina Foothills. This is all across Arizona. So I took a look at districts all throughout southern Arizona. And if you take a look at their numbers as well, you can see a drop in proficiency numbers that we just haven't recovered from. So when social emotional learning, a great concept, right, to really focus on our children's mental health, but when the priority of the social emotional development comes at an expense of traditional academic instruction, we need to review and revise it, especially with how it's implemented within our curricula. The time taken away from our core subjects to teach SEL has in fact been a disadvantage to our students achieving higher academic outcomes. Social emotional learning, it's meant to positively impact students' emotional well-being and improve their academic performance. But if we take a look at CDC, they've stated that depression and anxiety have increased over time amongst our youth. So if you take a look at CDC's Youth Risk Behavior Survey, for almost 10 years, SEL being woven into our children's curricula, it has not improved both academics and emotional well-being. So then maybe our district should take a look at making some changes. We've been very successful in past years. Let's take a look at what we can change to make things better within our curriculum involving social emotional learning.
All right, my question for Jennifer and then Bart. What is a policy/vote that the current board has done that you thought was a good thing for the district? And what's one that you think that was a bad thing for the district? So I need one good policy / decision and one that you thought was harmful possibly to the district. Let's go to Jen first.
Yes, so taking a look at some of the programs they're starting to implement in Foothills, I thought it was pretty promising to hear how they're going to help encourage our students within the career path towards education. So really getting kids interested in becoming teachers and helping with that path. And they're combining with JTED to help with these types of courses so that students can get ahead and start within that process to bring more teachers back to districts, because we have a big shortage with teachers. There is a lack of interest from students to want to go into that particular career path. So I was pretty happy to hear how they would like to create some excitement within that type of career. Policy that it's a non-policy that I think has made a negative impact within our school is certainly the combination of bathrooms, locker rooms, and thankfully I have not heard the athletics being affected by this yet, but that is exactly where it's headed, to combine both sexes within the same facilities. It's just not necessary. It is a distraction. It is a safety issue. And it is something that we all need to be involved in to create a policy over. So if constituents want that, if they agree to that, then great. We have the opportunity to discuss it and make that decision. And if we don't want it, that is also our time to discuss that and make that decision as a district.
One quick follow-up. Any specific incidents from that non-decision that you know of?
Thankfully, no incidents that I know of directly, but I do know it makes a lot of the students uncomfortable. They are told, the females, they're told if you don't feel comfortable sharing a bathroom or a locker room with someone of the opposite sex, then you come to the office, you let us know, and we will have you use a different facility. So we're talking half of the school. If they don't want to use the same facility as the opposite sex, now they need to go have different accommodations. Teenagers, it's hard enough already, and now you're going to ask them to go to an adult to make that sort of choice to disengage within their school and have to use a different facility for a very small group of kids that maybe want to.
Bart, one good decision, one bad decision from the current board.
Well, I would have to echo most of what Jennifer said. But on one of the other positive things, they, I guess, well, you could throw this as a policy or a practice. They expanded and built the orchestra. The orchestra, blanking on the I can't remember the right word for the, I don't want to call it the orchestra pit, but they've expanded they've got a big band. They have always had a fantastic band. They have a great concert area for the band, and then they've expanded an area for the orchestra. So I thought that was that was really good. And then and then I would agree with Jennifer on, basically it's a non-vote. You know, the policy, I would say a policy that it's basically a practice that is not officially declared as a policy and has never been discussed.
So this has come from the administrative side and not the board?
Oh,
What you're talking about when you say there's a non-decision based on something administration has put forward about bathrooms?
This was definitely the board,
Okay.
in conjunction with the administration. So they are hand in glove. So
there was a board vote on the policy?
Nope. What the board said was, back in 2015, we passed a non-discrimination policy, and that means that boys and young men can share the same facilities as young girls. And I said, okay, well, that's very interesting. I didn't know that. Could we talk about that? Could we put that on the agenda? And we had about 200 parents and district residents sign a petition to that effect, and they said no. So that's it. So in essence, Dave, that's a thing. I don't know how to phrase that, but it's basically a decision not to discuss a practice, but also an unwritten policy, because it's not, that practice that's being done is not written down anywhere, and you have to ask to find out about it. I had to ask.
Okay. James?
Okay, so let me understand. So you are, the petition was to get them to put this on the agenda so it could be discussed, because as you pointed out. But really, what was it you wanted them to discuss? I mean, it's a policy, it's in place. What were they supposed to discuss?
Well, they didn't have anything in black and white. So I didn't even know if my understanding was correct. I mean, other than what the principal at the time of the high school told me. So I was like, okay, well, can we discuss, can we get a little more detail? What happens if X, Y, or Z occurs?
So what happened in 2015? Isn't that when you say the policy went into place?
Well, no,
That's when they broadened the non-discrimination policy, and they state that sharing of facilities is under that.
but we didn't know that until 2023.
Okay.
So that, at least I didn't know that.
Okay, audience question, then we'll start with you, Bart. The district has made it a priority to hire more counselors. Given limited budgets, would you agree or disagree with that decision?
Well, I would say the priority has to be for education, but my mother was a high school guidance counselor. She was in education for 40 years, at least 20 of those as a counselor. So good guidance counseling is very, very critical. But if you, so I would not want to take away from that. But if you're going to, there's kind of been a little bit of mission creep. And so a lot of times they don't say guidance counselor anymore. They say counselors. And then now that is taken to mean a lot of things that traditionally they never meant. So there, I would say if we have to choose, if you have limited resources and you have to choose, then I'd want a skilled math teacher.
Do we have limited resources and do we have to choose? So the question is that they've made it a priority to do this. Do you agree or disagree with it?
Again, what I would say is it depends on what their mission is, but I would say I would want to have more, if I had to choose, I would pick more teachers.
Okay. Jennifer?
Yeah, that's a little bit of a hard question to answer because we're not on the board yet. So once we are on the board, we will be able to review the budget and have a better understanding of where money is going and where it maybe could be diverted instead. But I agree a lot with what Bart had to say. Counselors can absolutely play an important role for our students and parents. He's correct. The word guidance counselor has now changed to counselor, but we have seen with the high school, they just hired a specific guidance counselor to help students with their educational needs. Well, so then the question is, what are the other counselors if our high school then needed to make the choice of a particular guidance counselor? I guess we just need to have a better understanding of what type of counselors and what are they providing for our students?
Well, I believe one of the recent hires was a counselor to help students post-graduation. Would you support that?
Yes, I think
Help
that's
them,
great.
Yeah, figure out the path.
Yeah.
Bart?
Yeah. When you mean help them in terms of what they're going to do post graduation?
Correct.
Yeah. In fact, that's that's what my mother did. That's like in my mindset. That's what counselors do. They're supposed to help prepare, help the child graduate, and then have, whether it's a career right out of high school, or if it's trade school, or if it's college, whatever that is, that's to me, that's what counselors are there to do.
This is just a general topic question for me. What has enrollment been like, and what's the trends in enrollment at Catalina Foothills School District? Where are we at?
Well, right now we're about, the overall numbers are about the same as they were in years past, but the percentage of in-district versus out-of-district, it's about 50-50. So the term for out-of-district is open enrollment. And so thank God for open enrollment, because the district would have imploded if not for open enrollment. But the bigger concern is that about 30% of the children, school-age children within the district are attending school elsewhere. And there could be multiple reasons for that, but you factor that in along with 50% open enrollment. What happens if it becomes 55 or 65% open enrollment? That could be devastating because you could risk losing community support. So the bond overrides, the bond measures and overrides could be in jeopardy, and so that could be a big problem. So we definitely want to get. I think Jennifer will say, but I think in the past it wasn't near this percentage. I mean, it was like 80–90% were in district or something. Anyway, but that's what.
Yeah, Bart is correct. I mean, when I went to school, there was no open enrollment. You had to live in district to go to District 16. And when my graduating class, let's see, with enrollment all across Catalina Foothills was over 4,800. I think we were approaching 4,900. And we've steadily been within those numbers. We're a little bit higher this year. We're about 5,200 students enrolled. So yes, the open enrollment at 50% is great. It keeps our school going. It keeps funding within our district, but it is something that we do need to address. We need to figure out how to re-attract the students within our district. We want them to come back to our schools. We don't want to be losing them to other districts or private or charter. Of course, not every school fits every child, and you're going to have a number of that, but over 30% seems awfully high for in-district kids to not attend.
I just also assume there's a demographic problem. I assume the District 16 citizens getting older, not younger.
Yes.
I assume because that's what's happening up in my side of the world in OV. So, okay. Dan?
But isn't another problem the expansion of education savings accounts, ESAs? Basically, a student can take that money, homeschool, private school, leave the district in one form or another. Has the expansion of ESAs hurt the district as far as enrollment goes? Bart, we'll start with you.
I don't think there's any evidence for that right now. Now, maybe long term, but right now, I mean, this trend for 50% open enrollment's been going on for a while. This predates universal ESAs.
So I believe in school choice. ESA is actually no different from a student who opts for open enrollment. So yes, in fact, Catalina Foothills School District survives on the open enrollment dollars. So when a student comes from out of district into CFSD, say a student from TUSD, they are bringing that funding to Catalina Foothills School District. And of course, why shouldn't they be allowed to attend a school and receive a much higher quality education than they would otherwise get? So with the ESA, they do not actually receive 100% of the funding like an open enrolled student would get. So funding moves with that student, say from TUSD to CFSD, and with the ESA, only a portion of that money follows that student. So a student who uses the ESA forfeits about $1,000 in funding, and those dollars stay within the K through 12 budget at the state level. The concern with ESAs are often about the budget, and I'm no expert, but it seems inaccurate to say ESAs are being used to fund private schools out of the K through 12 budget. Those students are already out of the system, and so the funds that they are getting are from the ESA budget, which is in addition to the K through 12 budget. So the bottom line, whether I support ESA or not, it's immaterial. The legislature has created the system, and CFSD has to figure out how to navigate that system.
Well, actually, ESAs are funding private schools, and at a greater, higher amount these days, given that it was expanded. So if you look statewide, not your district, because you've explained to us what's going on in the district, statewide, there's a lot more money that's being going away from public schools. Does this concern you? Bart, we'll start with you.
Well, I've asked about this. I've went and I contacted some of the budget people in the legislature, and it gets confusing because they throw all these numbers out. But basically, the numbers that I have seen is that the ESA share of the ADE general fund in 2023 was 6.7%, and that the total share of K through 12 resources was 2.8%. And according to Tom Horn, he's claiming that they ended the fiscal year ended with a surplus. I can't follow all the numbers, so I got to take a lot of people's words for what's going on. But as a general rule, an in-district student gets just under $15,000 in funding. Charter school gets $12,500, and the average ESA is around $9,900. And then the other thing that's complicated is that these numbers can and do include those with special needs. So those with special needs could be like up to $25,000, $28,000. So that really skews, or it changes a lot of the numbers. But because I think a more typical ESA disbursement is around $7,200. It's hard to follow the numbers. But the people that I've asked have said that there hasn't been, they're claiming there's no hole. I cannot, yeah.
Wait, they're claiming what? That it's not a problem?
They're claiming that there was not at least in the PSA, or not PSA, the press release from the superintendent's office was that they're claiming that they ended with a surplus, and that there was no, they came in under budget. That's what they're claiming. That's what they claimed at the end of August. And when I asked the budget, sorry, because it's hard to follow all the numbers. He was claiming that there's just that the education spending was right on target. That's what they're claiming.
Okay, well, in decades of journalism, I can tell you there is nothing more difficult to understand than how schools are paid for. It is extremely difficult. There's so many different sources and everything. But we do have hundreds, maybe thousands more kids taking advantage of ESAs, which means that money is moving away from public schools. So Jennifer, does that concern you? That was the question.
No, competition is important. I mean, if our public schools want to compete, then they need to bring their level up. If parents are making different choices, there's a reason for it.
I'm going to rephrase from one of the audiences. Neither of you have kids in the district right now, right? Why is it so? They're concerned that you don't have kids in the district. But my thing is, why should people who don't have kids in the district anymore run for office to try to make, and serve on a school board? Let's start with Jennifer, and then we'll go to Bart.
Okay, could you say that one more time?
Basically, it's the idea that you don't have kids in the district. This person's kind of taking you to task a little bit that you don't have. Why are you running if you don't have kids in the district?
Sure.
Right.
I mean, I went through the district. Oldest went through the district. Clearly, we don't have an issue with that aspect of it. Our youngest, yes, we did pull her from Sunrise Drive Elementary in 2020, and that was due to overreaching policies of District 16. Our goal was to provide her with the best education possible, and that choice included going private. We knew she needed an in-person education, and we are very proud of the decision we made. She is thriving. She is a great student. She loves school, and she is very well prepared now to move on to the next level, which is going to be middle school in just a couple years. So, no, I don't think that's an issue. I have a lot of insight, and I am hoping to bring her back to District 16. That's my goal.
Well, yeah, all of my kids attended school in the district, and my eldest went all the way through and graduated. So as far as bona fides for having kids, I think we've met that. The other thing is that the vast majority of children, no matter what, have been and will continue to be educated in public schools, so they're very important. So even if someone doesn't have children, they are the future of the country. How they're educated, if they're taught properly how to think and not necessarily what to think, that's important, because it sounds cliche, but it's true. They're the future leaders of the country. So this is a very important thing. So I think even if someone didn't have, let's just say someone was childless, is still an important thing. It's still something that you could say, hey, I have a concern. I live in the district, and I'm concerned for the future. So.
Remember, Whitney said children are the future. I want you to know that.
The real answer is that because it's my tax money. That's why I want to know what's going on in the district. Okay,
yeah.
so Bart, we'll start with you. This is from the audience. Should armed guards be posted in the schools, the local schools, to keep students safe?
Well, I think the school board kind of thinks that because at the typical school board meeting, there's 3 armed sheriff deputies and a magnetometer. They have more security per square foot than the entire footprint of CFSD. So I think definitely SROs. I think that's the proper term for the. I mean, those are one component, and I would, I'd have no problem with after a review we say, okay, how many SROs do we need at each school?
Do we have SROs now?
Yes, but they're very few in number. I think there's 5, between 5 and 7. I'm not. I'd have to double check that because
okay.
I can't. But there's not enough in my opinion. I mean, I would, and there's been some very big. The district is trying to address this, but there was a big security concern at Orange Grove in the last month, and the initial district response was and board response was lackluster, but they have been improving. But really, I think there needs to be a security town hall, not to go over tactics as far as how you're going to thwart a would-be attacker, but to address parental concerns. Hey, what are you guys doing for this and that? Because frankly, if all there is a sign that says, this is a gun-free zone, and here we've got a gate, there's got to be more security than that. So these are our children. There's nothing more valuable than the kids. So this is a very serious thing. I mean, there's a concerned group of parents that are looking to have this item discussed by the board, and also they would love to see a full-time security expert hired and put on the staff of the district, and I wholly support something like that. But this is where there has to be conversation from the district, because the community may have different ideas as far as what's the best way forward. So I don't want to just pretend, oh, we know everything. We got to I think collectively the district will have a lot of good ideas if there's a discussion and a forum to hear them.
Okay.
I was along the same lines. Yes.
You're good?
He brought up pretty much everything. Well, there's one thing that was missed, and maybe a bit of a missed opportunity for our district. There was an Arizona bill passed for the school safety program. So it allowed funds for school districts to be used for safety-related personnel and initiatives, which also included social workers, counselors, and of course it included security resource officers. At the time, our district did not apply for this, and it seems as though it is a much bigger topic of concern for parents and guardians now, and so hopefully prior to the ending of the next application in April 2025, I hope our district reconsiders applying for that particular grant to help support SROs within our different schools. So that was the last option for that.
Okay, this is from the audience also. I've heard about the issue of book banning used to describe some candidates and in the general dialogue around school boards. Can you describe your thoughts on this?
Who would you like to go first?
Go ahead, Bart.
Oh, well, first off, the board can't ban books. Okay, so that's not a real issue. But the board does determine what's the appropriate curriculum, and nothing should be banned. Jennifer and I would never even consider doing anything like that. That's a silly accusation. But things do need to be age appropriate, and there should be no pornography in the schools or in the curriculum. But there's, just like there's ratings on movies. So if a movie's rated R, does that mean the movie's banned? No, it just means parents have to accompany the child or the minor in there to watch that movie. So in a similar way, a lot of parents of people of goodwill can disagree as something age appropriate for their child. So this again circles back to partnering with the parents, making sure the parents are involved so that they can opt in or opt out of things that might be controversial or that people of goodwill could disagree upon. I think that's the best solution, but not banning. Just making sure things are age appropriate and the parents are involved. That will solve 95% of this issue, I think.
Jen?
Yes, I agree. Over the last few years, our district did start implementing the ability for parents to opt out, so they would give a list of books to the parents through an online ability to see what your child is going to read for what particular class. I like that option. That gives parents the ability to opt out of a certain book. What was a little hard was the amount of time that they offered a parent to review these materials, which was a week, and that was definitely not long enough for me to review every book and decide which books were appropriate or not appropriate. So maybe lengthening that time frame for parents so that they can make the right choice for their child. But agree with Bart that book banning is not something that a board member can do. Not to mention a parent has the opportunity to take their child to a library, maybe go online to Amazon. You can get whatever book you would like your child to read at any time.
My question for you guys next has to do with losses in learning pandemic onward. School districts that basically spent too much time with their kids learning online or attempting to learn online, there are been drastic losses in their learning. So do you feel as though, we know that they probably handled it not the right way in Catalina Foothills, but what are the perceived losses in learning that you see, and do you think that the district currently has the plan in place and the resources to make up for those losses in learning? And we'll start with Jen.
Sure. I got to witness this firsthand watching my oldest in high school. And the learning losses were apparent at the moment, and math and science were the biggest learning loss for not only her, but other students. They felt like they were teaching themselves, and in fact, sometimes they really were. So that's where, as a parent, we had to jump in and ensure that she was still receiving the education needed outside of school. So the district has paid attention to this. I don't know if they're moving quick enough on that. I understand, again, the lack of teachers in general. It's hard to keep teachers within the district. People are leaving the industry altogether. So I think they do have a big road ahead of them to help bridge that gap of learning loss during those couple of years of COVID. So my hope is they can ramp it up, and we can really focus on bringing better educators to our math and our science programs.
So currently they're falling short in making up for the losses.
Yes.
Okay. Bart.
This is a tremendous challenge because certain things, there's no substitute for time. So, I mean, there's just so it's like, okay, it's going to take X amount of time to master a particular skill set, or academic or athletic, and sometimes there's just no way around. You know, if you had a 6-month slowing, or let's say even halting of learning, well, there's so many hours in the day, so some of this, the only thing that's going to make up for it is enough time, maybe extra class time. I mean, so some of this I just see is going to be an ongoing challenge. It was a big challenge thankfully, my wife was there to help with, my eldest, it didn't really affect her, but my 2 younger ones, if they hadn't had somebody at home to help it would have been a disaster. It would have been, so it's a big challenge. The other thing I would say I fear is that if there was ever anything similar, if we had another pandemic, they would do the same thing all over again. They would shut the schools down in a minute. They'd force them to wear 10 masks, and it would be bad. They would do the same thing. The current board administration, I believe, would not do anything different. They would do exactly the same thing.
Jennifer, I want to go back to something you said earlier. See if I got the facts right. You pulled your daughter out of the district in 2020, and she's doing very well now. The goal is to bring her back.
Yes.
How old is she, and what specifically would have to happen for you to feel comfortable having her back in the district?
Sure. She turns 10 on Monday, so she'll be in middle school in 2 years. I need to see an increase in the focus on academic excellence. I would feel pretty discouraged if we brought her into district and it's not at a level that she is currently working at. I know where we've been and I know where we can go within our district, and if we can make some adjustments within policy, within our focus on academics, I'm excited to bring her back within district. I would like her to have the same opportunities I had and the same experiences I had.
Okay, appreciate that. Doug, we'll throw this question to you first. What's the best way to learn what parents are concerned about? Communication.
Town halls and placing items on the agenda after a certain number of parents express a desire to have it done. So going back again to last year, we even another thing we wanted to put, I forgot about this, another thing we wanted to put on the agenda was we said, look, could you adopt a policy that if 100 or more parents or district residents sign a petition saying, we want topic X to be on the agenda for the next board meeting. Doesn't matter what it is, but if you get 100 verified district residents or parents, because I think it's important to listen to even open enrolled parents if they have their kids there. So if 100 or more sign that and say, we want this topic to put on the agenda, I don't think it's unreasonable to do that. So something like that needs to happen. It needs to happen yesterday.
Okay, Jennifer.
Could you repeat the question for me?
What's the best way to learn what parents are concerned about?
Oh, it would be great if we actually provided some form of a survey for parents or a questionnaire for parents to see what is top of mind for them. A great example from my youngest daughter's current school is they did just that at the end of a school year. Sent out a questionnaire for all parents and asked, what are your top 3 most important items on this list? What would you like to see us add to our school? And 88% of parents chose an SRO. And oddly enough, 3 months later, we have a full-time SRO in the school. So seems pretty simple to ask the question, find out what's most important, and then address it from there on.
So we talked earlier that they might be over-surveying. So what's wrong with how they're doing surveying, I guess? Because you just said...
Yes, it would be great if they surveyed parents versus students. So yes, there is a bit of over-surveying with the students. I understand that teachers are looking to get to know their students within all the different classes, but when I went to school, they just asked, well, what is it that you like to do? Do you have a nickname? Would you rather be called Jennifer or Jenny? Instead of writing this information down, and we don't know where this is kept, we don't know who has this information. Not to mention, some of these questions might not be appropriate in terms of parental values, and that really needs to change and adjust.
Question from the audience, and this is something I guess you guys have either said or stated on your websites. What do you mean by traditional, quote, traditional learning or, quote, traditional education, and whose traditions? Bart?
Well, I guess that's all reference to when you went to school. So a lot of it framework is, what was it like when I was in school? So yeah, I would say like that. I would call it, you go to school to learn, and you don't go to school for therapy. So that's what.
Yes, I would answer pretty much the same. I mean, from when I went to school, that's what I'm looking for in my children's education. I would like the same educational path that I took within my children's education.
This is from an audience member. Jennifer, we'll start with you. Why doesn't the district have dual enrollment courses, and what will you do to bring them to the district?
I think that is a little bit of a complicated question, and I might be incorrect on it, but I believe I did dual enrollment courses with PIMA that were actually held at the high school in the evenings, and I thought it was a great option. I got ahead. I enjoyed the maturity level of these classes, and in fact, I got to take some of them with my husband. So I'm not sure why they've moved away from dual enrollment, and it may have to do with policies and the types of teachers, because certain teachers now, I believe, have to be certified a little bit differently to offer the dual enrollment for students. Same with the JTED. They do have a little bit of a trouble getting teachers to certify to be both high school and JTED. So I think it's a little more complicated now.
Yeah, I would echo the same thing. For some reason, I thought they, or maybe I'm getting them confused, but I thought there was still that option at the district, and maybe I'm misinformed.
I think now it's the JTED, and I don't believe they have the same sort of dual enrollment.
Okay.
Huh?
Okay.
They do?
My daughter got college credit at U of A.
All right.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's limited, but they do have it.
So it's only certain classes. Okay. It wasn't quite the same when I went to school. It's a little more broad.
You know, it's funny looking at the different cards. I feel like the crux of these discussions we keep having is there's this wall between the communication of, again, because I'm looking at and they're all the various versions about airing of grievances and different things like this, right? So is really in the end the crux of not the crux, but one of the most important parts of why you're running is you feel there's a breakdown of communication, that it's basically the superintendent and the board, and then the parents are kind of left out in the cold. Is that really, that's what I feel like, because I'm looking at like 5 different cards that all kind of point to the same thing. Is that really one of the main gists of why you guys are running? Bart, or let's go Jennifer.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's probably one of our biggest concerns as parents, not being heard and not being included.
So what do the board members tell you when you tell them this, right? I mean, in the end, if you give them a 200 on a petition and they say, we don't really care, they're just saying, well, then beat me in an election. That's how I look at it. But this is why you're here too. But what do they tell you when you say I have 200 people, other than we're not doing it? I mean, what's the reason?
I could go and look at
The idea that just 200 parents that actually give a damn,
yeah,
that's really rare.
basically it was, we're the board, and if I remember right, it was something to the effect of, we have a school board to make these decisions, and you're not the school board. That was, and I mean, that was the basic gist, and it was, and also it was expressing, I think they were expressing confidence that they were, in their defense, I guess, that they felt that they were representing the majority, or maybe what they felt to be the vast majority of the district. So, but even if that, I don't agree with that, but let's just say that it's true, you still have an obligation as an elected board member to listen to people with whom you may disagree. Even to listen to people you might think are crazy. You're a public servant, you're there serving the constituents. They have a right to hear from you, and you have a duty to answer questions and to do it in a conversational way, in a professional setting at a board meeting, and not hide behind, well, it's not on the agenda, I'm prohibited from talking about it. Okay, put it, and anyway, that's.
Anything you want to add to that, Jen?
No, that was great.
Okay, this just in, as we say in our business, and I hope it's inaccurate. We need teachers to be present at school, at their job. Half the time classes are taught by substitute teachers. Sometimes there are no available subs, and the kids are told by way of a notice on the classroom door to just go hang out at the courtyard till next period. Good grief.
okay.
I sure hope that's not happening, but we all know that not as much is learned when subs are present. Is there a way to gauge how many teachers are calling off and to correct that if it's an issue?
This is the first I've heard about this, phrased exactly this way, so I can only speak to something similar. One of the parents that we know, her son had a math class that for most of, I think the teacher, I'm forgetting, either the teacher had to go on maternity leave or they just didn't have a teacher, but they needed a long-term substitute, and but they could not find any. They were looking for somebody that had some sort of credential in math, but really this gentleman had no ability or knowledge to teach this math, and I think it was a higher level. You know, it wasn't algebra. It was probably algebra 2 trig or something. I forget now.
I think it was calculus.
Was it calculus? Oh my gosh. Okay, so basically they had no calculus teacher for the majority of the school year, and that was because there's a shortage of qualified math teachers. So that's why.
But what about that, and I think this is a really good point, because, you know, back in the day, if I had substitutes 5 times, you know, K through 6, I'd be very surprised. Teachers just were always there. And now it does seem, my daughter taught in a district for 10 years, it does seem like they call off quite a bit. Is that, I mean, maybe I'm asking you to solve a problem that, you know, is unsolvable, but can it be dealt with?
I think it can be dealt with, but I'm not going to pretend to tell you how. I'd have to, because this is the first I'm hearing about it, that it's at this epidemic proportion. So I just know that would be something we would want to engage the community and superintendent and, you know, other, you know, we would want, get to the bottom.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I say something? I have a friend whose son just graduated from Cali Foothills High School who had to get a math tutor because I think it's because of that teacher talking about his math, that he wasn't sufficient enough or good enough to teach her to substitute because the teacher wasn't there. And I went over to her house one time and I said, "Who's that?" "Well, it's his math tutor." And he goes to Cali Foothills, he's graduated, but they had to get him a math tutor. And it was just because of that reason.
Historically, those have been tough jobs to fill in school districts, you know, especially of late, so.
No kid likes math, and then I assume the percentage of kids liking math as we move through keeps getting lower and lower. And you go, hey, well, you're going to teach this the rest of your life. Sorry, Ackerley, you're out. So, I guess this is my last one for me, I think, and then we'll have Dan. You got one more after that? No, okay. So my question is to the future, right? Is the idea that you have competition out there, you have technology going on, you have teacher shortages. What does the school district look like now in relation to being prepared for the next 10 years of what I think is turbulent times for public schools? And if you guys get on the board, what would be something that a couple of things that you would want to start really looking at as evolving this school district to go with the times and not remain stagnant and possibly start dropping down, because they are too stagnant. So we'll start with Jennifer and then finish with Bart.
That's a great question. There's a lot in that question.
No weak ones at the end.
I would say, really, our board is very innovative with curricula, and they do bring a lot of different programs in. They are constantly trying to incorporate different ways to educate our students. And something that could be very helpful is, instead of having the outward appearance that everything is fantastic, I think sometimes we need to bring the issues out in the open so that we can be a little more creative on how to address certain situations. So if the school is going to evolve, it needs to evolve in a way that really engages with parents and community members. There are a lot of different programs out there that maybe could be beneficial within our own community. We have so many different small business owners. They can really engage with that. My oldest, I will admit, I am nowhere near as motivated as she is. She does a lot of volunteering, and she does it in different industries, so she can get an idea of what she might want to do as far as a career path. And I'm amazed at the opportunities she has with these different programs, and I think maybe if we can encourage more of that within our school system, that can really push us over the top in terms of evolving. Just one example.
Yeah, I would say one of the things that we'd want to consider doing is what the so-called SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and basically try to look at where we are, where we've been, and where we're going, and then try to improve things based upon the data that we get. And I don't pretend to have all the answers to the challenges that the district faces now or will face in the future, but I'm confident that it probably lies within the collective knowledge of the district and the or of the community. And the only way to gain that knowledge is to partner with and have a regular dialogue with the concerned parents and community members of the district. And this will involve confirming the good, the bad, and the ugly of the district. And then once we learn the legitimate and constructive criticisms, then we can work to address them.
All right, well, thanks for having us, and thank you for running. It takes, again, this is the most unsexy position to ever run. It gets the least amount of attention. Everyone's going insane for other things out there, but this is where the rubber meets the road, and we learned it during pandemic times. This is one of the most important, still one of the most, reinforced how important the school board position is. And we're in trouble, man. I just did a story on the show from the Atlantic magazine that kids in college at Columbia are admitting that they're never required to read a book in high school. So they were accepted into Columbia and were not expected. They said, the guy teaches great books, literature course, and they're freaking out because he's asking them to read a book. So that's where we're at. So this makes what's going on here even more important. So thank you. Dan, thanks for coming up all the way from Green Valley. Appreciate it. And thank you all guys for having us here. We love doing this with you. So
thank you.
Thank you for coming too.